Officially welcome to this meetup for July 2023. We are happy that you are all here, even though it's summer holidays for some people. We have a packed agenda today. Liz is going to tell us a little about how the Dynamics user groups are working. Albin is going to tell us about electronic reporting and how his company is doing some extra stuff with electronic reporting, some add-ons. And then Diana is going to tell us something about Power Apps. We have a little more about it later. So the Orga team first, Jörgen.
Yeah, thanks a lot. My name is Jörgen Fladot. I'm working at Avanade as a solution architect for Dynamics 365 customer engagement and the Power Platform. And yeah, I'm happy to join today, as last month I wasn't able due to some conference. So really enjoying being here today. And yeah, Ludwig, will you continue?
Yep. I'm still in Microsoft, I'm still TS, but I joined the bright side. So I'm now TS for Power Platform.
The dark side, Ludwig. So I'm not exactly like Ludwig any longer. Then I'm still in Microsoft. I'm still a technical specialist, and I'm still doing finance. So yeah, but we are happy to have you all here, and let's move on. The meeting rules are the same as usual. We are here to learn from each other, so be constructive and come with your comments and let us have some good discussions about the Dynamics products that we are going to see. Yeah, as I told you, Albin is going to tell a little about electronic reporting. And Albin, how do I say, is it Docentric or?
Yeah, Docentric or Docentric, depending where you're coming from. Some say Docentric, so people say all kinds of variations, but never mind.
Okay, yeah. That will come then after this, and then Diana is going to tell us a little about grid customer control in Power Apps in the end. And we have also an agenda for next month. There will be a meetup in August. Leander is going to tell us about Copilot in Viva, sales and marketing, and Annika is going to tell us about financial tax. And for the next month, if you want to, I will post it on LinkedIn, but if you want to, you can join us at the Munich office, because Leander and I will both be at the Munich office, so you are welcome to come and join us. So, and in the end, thank you for joining us. I will repeat that in the end. And should we see if you can share your screen first?
Absolutely, I will do my best. Trying.
It works.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Yes, thank you so much, Lana, Jörgen, and Ludwig for having me on today. My name is Liz Hallen. I'm the Vice President of Dynamics User Group, otherwise known as Doug. I'm hoping most of you have heard of us before, but we are a community that services all of the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Dynamics GP, as well as the Power Platform products. We offer a free membership to individuals, and really one of our core missions is to help educate our community with as many free topics or free ways of getting educated through networking, collaborating. You've probably most heard of us as the host of the Dynamics Con events. We host virtual and live, and we've had full-time staff on board since 2003. 2020. But prior to that, we were the online discussion forum that many of you probably are aware of, which is at dynamicsuser.net, that our lovely Eric Ernst started way back in the day. So that's where our origins come from, but we now have 6 full-time staff. We still offer free membership for individuals. We very much believe in helping people to grow in their own career and personal and development. Through this, we do this in various different ways, one of which is meetups like what you are joining us today. Doug has many meetups across the globe. We've got about 36 groups across 8 countries today, and all of our meetups are always free to attend. We do still have those wonderful discussion forums that Eric started way back in the day. Great place to ask and answer questions. The Dynamics Con events are still in full force. We are looking to, for those of you, since most of our live events are based in the US at this point, but that's why we like to offer the Dynamics Con virtual event. I believe many of you have probably participated by either submitting a session or voting on sessions. Our next virtual event will not be until the fall of 2024. So sign up on dynamicsusergroup.com for your free membership and stay up to date on that. We do have webinars as well. This is one of our newer programs. These are free educational webinars, primarily being hosted by MVPs, other experts in our community, and we do host these in conjunction with MS Dynamics World. And meetup calls like this one that are being recorded are also hosted on our YouTube channel. In our YouTube channel, you will also find about 700 other videos on education for the core Dynamics and Power Platform products. Many of those videos have come from prior Dynamics Con virtual events. We do have some upcoming regional meetups, but these are in the US, so probably not super relevant to all of you. So we will just fly right by those. But if you feel like coming over onto the other side of the pond, our next Dynamics Con live event will be in May. And that will be held in Denver, Colorado at the Marriott Denver Tech Center. And we are working very closely with the Docentric team, who I know is hosting Dynamics Minds, doing our best to not overlap with our dates this year. And we want to very much offer both for all of our community to enjoy. I will drop a link to our website and my email address in the chat if anybody has any questions or would like to learn more about Doug and our programs.
Thank you, Liz.
Yes.
Yeah, I will also add your LinkedIn in the chat so that people can connect with you to see other events that you are posting.
Excellent. Great idea.
Yeah. And over to Albin.
Okay. Thank you. So let me share my screen now. Actually, I was going to say a few words about electronic reporting today and about the improvements that we have done in Docentric. Now, I'm not sure how much experience have you got about electronic reporting, so I will say some basics and then I will just move on to the features which we added in Docentric solution, because probably some of you have already worked with electronic reporting, but for those of you who are completely new, this will be just the information what we have done on top of standard. Now, first I'd like to thank Ludwig and Lone for the invitation to speak today. Ludwig and I met at Dynamics Minds conference in Portorož, Slovenia in May this year, where we were holding a joint presentation on electronic reporting, and there he invited me to do a presentation in this meetup, which I gladly accepted. Since I mentioned Dynamics Minds and also Liz mentioned it, let me say that this was really a quite unique conference. In many respects, Ludwig can confirm that. This was the first time that we at Docentric organized it, and it was really quite a lot of work, and but it was worth it. And the attendees' positive feedback is actually encouraging us, and we're going to organize it again next year. The dates will be known in August. And I think I can say that it will really be a great conference, just as the first one, maybe even better. And I invite you all to attend if you have the possibility to do so. Now, just as far as Docentric is concerned, we're going to organize it again. And we consider ourselves community-first, community-driven, community-friendly organization. We also offer a free edition of our product, which is used by thousands of companies worldwide. And we also publish quite a lot of community content, as I mentioned earlier. and we just organized this conference, and the one next year is going to be probably also a success. So let me say now a few words about myself. I'm senior technical consultant with Docentric. I have been several decades in IT. I've been wearing all kinds of hats in technical and executive positions. I started working with electronic reporting in 2019 when Microsoft announced support for configurable business documents. I'm also the author of several written and recorded videos that are found in our blog. And here and there, I also speak at conferences. And the last information is that I will also be speaking at Community Summit North America in October this year in USA. And I will present a community session about tips and tricks for customizing electronic reporting. Okay, so the agenda for today is actually, I'm just going to show you some basics. Then I will include Docentric enhancements. Afterwards, we're going to have a quick summary. Maybe there will be some questions. We will discuss them there. I would just ask you maybe not to ask questions at this moment because I have this presentation and not really so much time. So I would like to show it the way as I have intended. Okay, some basics. First of all, electronic reporting is all about configurations, starting with data model, which basically defines the data structure that you want to get out of the system. And then you have model mapping, which defines rules how and which data to get, how to process them, where to bind them to the data model. And in the next step, we have the format configuration, where we have the possibility to output the data. Typically, this could be some data exchange format like XML, or maybe the template in Excel or Word if we talk about configurable business documents. There we also have individual format mapping, which maps the data model with the data in the template, and basically the output is then sent to whichever template we select, or whichever format we select in the end. Okay, now where do we get electronic reporting configurations? Typically, the best approach would be that we get the configurations which are already prepared. Microsoft has got really a ton of configurations. I think current count is something like 4,700, and they keep adding them on daily basis practically. So until now, the way how to access this general electronic reporting, or JER for short, configurations, were to find them in the shared assets in LCS library, but this will be deprecated. So currently we can use RCS, regulatory configuration services, where again we can find them. But as I have heard from some sources from Microsoft, there will be some changes here as well. So I will not speculate on that. But the last way, which is always there for you, is to manually import configurations, which you of course need to get somewhere first, either from your colleague or maybe from one of the sources I mentioned earlier. Okay, now to start customizing, we need to have some things ready as well. And these are configuration providers. We need to add our own configuration provider because Microsoft configurations are stored on Microsoft configuration provider, but they cannot be modified. To modify them, we need to open our own configuration provider, and that's where everything starts. And then the process of customization actually is that we derive from the existing configurations. Derive basically means copy-paste. And when we do that, first we start with the data model. And in the data model, then we add the missing data schema. Then we move on to model mapping, where we start with the model mapping provided by Microsoft. And then we usually point to our derived data model, and then we make modifications in model mapping, telling where the data sources are for our data. In the next step, we do the same thing with the format. Again, we derive from the existing format and using our derived model and model mapping, and then we design the template or whichever document we want as output. In the next step, we maybe need to change some setting in order to be able to run draft configurations while we're still developing it, or maybe run the debugger if the data that we are expecting are not there. And finally, when everything is ready, we set the status to complete and practically modify the electronic reporting destinations as needed, and basically the customization process is complete. Okay, now I have prepared a demo for this. I'm not going to show you customization process because that will take too much time, but I'm going to show you what I have already prepared in the standard electronic reporting. So the electronic reporting workspace actually can be under the workspaces. So here I have it. I have already put it under favorites so that I quickly get it. So here I have my configuration providers. In my case, I'm using Docentric next to Microsoft, which is there by default. And reporting configurations, which I'm using here, basically are for the sales invoice. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you the sales invoice base model, the one that's provided by Microsoft, and also my derived version, and I will explain what I have done and how I have done it. So when I have installed the configurations, by the way, if you got a configuration as XML file, you can actually load it using Exchange Load from XML menu item. And this way, first you start with the model and then model mapping and finally the format. So basically this invoice model mapping, and sales invoice Excel are the Microsoft configurations. Basically, I see that the configuration provider is Microsoft. They are in completed status. So that tells me that, okay, they are in the shared status, pardon, I clicked it in the wrong place. And this tells me that they are ready to be shared. And then I have done my modifications. Actually, if I first show what is the standard format looking like, let me now set everything up so that I will be running the standard. So I will just open the accounts receivable and I'll go to print management. By the way, electronic reports are only available for print management documents. Here I have the customer invoice. I have several settings. I will be running one for line of business 3100. And here currently I have the SSRS report selected, but I have also the sales invoice Excel. So this is standard Microsoft electronic reporting format. And I'm going to be using this one at the moment. And I will go right away and quickly run one report. I'll just go from sales orders and I will find some order that has been invoiced and then go to the journal, for example, this one. And I will print it from the journal using print management. So now we will see how this document looks like that was provided by Microsoft. Okay, I have also debugging activated, so I could actually start the debugger if I wanted. And this is the result. So that's the standard document that Microsoft is providing. And now I wanted to customize it a little bit. Basically, I wanted to include product images. So under the line items, I want to include product images if product images exist. Otherwise, I just want to just show it the way as it is now. Okay, so this time I have now then started by deriving a new invoice model. Actually, the deriving process is initiated here. So you tell what you want to derive from and give it a new name. And basically this way you start and create the derived model, and then you go ahead and modify it. In electronic reporting, modification is done uniformly using the designer. So this designer actually is going to open the structure. And as you can see, this is the invoice model. And this invoice model is quite complex, as you can see. I'm not going to go into details. I'm just going to find the part which I have customized. This is in invoice line. So the invoice line, basically there I have included 3 fields. The first one is item image, which is of type container. This is going to contain the image as container that will be needed for binding it to Excel template. I have added another item image string, which basically will contain the base 64 string. This will be needed for Docentric customization later on. And I have also included a Boolean field, which basically just checks is the item image there or not, and I can use it as a trigger whether I will display anything in the template or not. So these are the 3 fields which I have added here in the customization. And now I will go to the model mapping and show what I have derived there. So here I have been using my derived data model, and I will show you now what I have done, because here is where the real work begins in electronic reporting, because now we have to tell where do we get the data from. So as you can see, it's much more complex. For those of you who are not familiar with what I see here, so these are the data sources. So basically where I get the data from, and this is the data model. So this is my structure, which is going to consume this data, and I actually bind the two. But first, we need to prepare the data sources in the right way in order not to get into some sort of troubles. And basically, as you can see, this is mainly done by Microsoft. I have just done the tiny part. Mainly, we have so-called calculated fields. All this $sign text here basically points to calculated fields. And as you can see, they are using all kinds of logic. Now, what I have done here, I needed to first include references to one table and one class, because I will be calling some methods on those items. That's why I needed to have a reference, which I have here. And then in the invoice lines, so this is the calculated field for the invoice lines, there I have added those two references and basically included them in the form of the formula. So here I am now preparing the data. And basically what I do, sorry, I will start with the event table. I need to get the image of the item from the item that's on the sales invoice. So I need to get the reference to the event table, because from there I can go to the docref table in the database, which contains attachments. And basically event table through relations is related to documents, and I need to use it here. That's why I have inserted it. And edit formula will show me what I'm doing. Basically, I'm just executing the find function on the event table, and as a parameter to this find function, I'm actually passing the item ID from the current invoice lines. So this is giving me the reference to the event table. And in the next step, where I am here for the image reference, so this is the class, which basically is consuming this calculated field from earlier. And so this is parameter event table from earlier, which is calling another method that is returning this image. But actually, this is all executed using this class and this method on the class. Now, as a functional consultant, you probably wouldn't know these details and what you need to call and how. Here you need a developer, even though one of the promises of electronic reporting is to empower a functional consultant to be able to get data without developers. Theoretically true, but practically developers would probably still be needed here and there to explain you such details as I'm showing you here. Okay, so let me go back. This is now providing the data for me. So I would get the thumbnail here of the image, and that's exactly what I need. And now the last part is I need to bind this to the data model. And this binding is relatively straightforward. So I just find the content. Here is the item image as container. And basically, again, I'm using a formula where I basically just call this calculated field, and then I go through relations. This is one-to-many relations to get to the documents. And then on documents, there is a method get file content as container, which I call, and this will return me the content of the documents of the attachments for this item ID that is pointing through this event table. So that's the idea how to read the container part. Now reading the string is a bit different. So let me show you how this is done. So here I just have a condition, and basically I'm now referring to image reference calculated field, and there is a parameter there, which, well, not parameter, the property there, which is containing the value of that record. And if the value is base 64, that means, okay, yes, this is an image, I can use it. And in that case, I read this image. Otherwise, I just return the empty string. If the attachment was something else, if it was not an image. So that way I get the content which I need, and I bind this content to this item image as string. And finally, just is item image present basically is just a simple expression, which again is checking is event table and relations in the documents. So this is returning the list. If this list is empty, that means no attachments. In that case, I return false. Otherwise, I return true. And this is going to be a trigger for my template so that I will know whether I should display it or not. And that's the model mapping part. So this is the part which you always need to do when you want to customize any kind of data, whether you're using standard electronic reporting or whether you're using Docentric. Practically, the model mapping and data model needs to be there, and it needs to provide the correct value. Now, in standard, you have the format which you need to customize, and basically I have customized it here. So the format again is derived from the base format configuration, and then I have modified it. Basically, if I now open the designer, I have the attachments here, and basically the attachment that I have got from the standard, I have downloaded first, and basically here it is. It looks like this. This is the Excel file, which serves as a template. And as you can see, this Excel file looks like this. To read this Excel file and how the electronic reporting basically works with Excel files as templates is on the base of named cells and named ranges. If I take a look what kind of namings I have here, you see I have got lots and lots of them. And I have the whole ranges, which then contains its content. And on the minimal level, I have, or on the detail level, I have the label cells and I have the value cells. So basically, this is date time label and this is date time value. And basically, using this naming, electronic reporting then knows how to map the, let's say, these cells in Excel with the data model which I have specified. And of course, if I want to modify anything, I need to modify this template so that it gets correct values. I need to enter these names and I need to make sure that I don't make any mistakes. So if I just do small modifications, like in my case, when I have just inserted a new row here, then it's relatively easy. But if I wanted to, let's say, modify this by placing images elsewhere, for example, let's say that I would want to have image in one corner and I would want to have some data content here, or if I want to change the structure of the data that is in the head of the document, in that case, I would have quite a bit of work and it would really, take days before I would finish the template. Now let me show you my final template, which I have modified. So this is the one which I have prepared for today. And I will also turn on the grid lines and headings so that you will be better able to read it. What I have done here is basically I have inserted this new row and I have also named it. It's called invoice lines item image. And this is the conditional, let's say, range, which I will be showing or hiding depending on the content of the image. And here I have inserted the picture, which I have also named. And this will be replaced with the actual image at runtime. So I have done this part of customization, relatively simple customization. And after I have done it, I have then imported this new attachment in this configuration. And now I can see, if I expand the nodes, I can see all these ranges. This is actually extracted from Excel. And I see all the named cells and ranges, and basically I am then binding them when I come to the mapping. So first I need to check if I have my changes here. I see that my customization is included. So this is the range where I will have the item image row, and this is actually the item image picture, which will be replaced. And if I now go to the mapping, I see that I already have the mapping done. What I have done here is basically I pointed to this cell, this named cell, and I have found the invoice lines information about the item. This time it was item image string. And basically I have, no, actually it's the container because this is Excel. So I have then used binding to bind these two elements. And I also then set this conditional content. Basically, this one was relatively easy because all I did, I simply use this field which I have already calculated that has true or false, depending whether item image is there or not. So that was the change and the configuration. And once I have that ready, I can go ahead and modify my print management settings. So instead of running this standard Excel, I will now be running my MeetUP Excel template. And okay, now I have done it, and let's try our luck. Working with electronic reporting is always an adventure. You know where you want to go, but you're never sure if you're going to get there. Those of you who worked with electronic reporting know what I said. Okay, let's try our luck. Okay, now, since I didn't provide the electronic reporting destinations, as in the previous case, the file destination was selected and the result has downloaded as Excel file. If I open it, I'm able to see these images, and basically, yes, everything works the way as I expected. So if item image is present, it is included, otherwise is not. Okay, so that's as far as the standard is concerned. Now let me show you what Docentric adds to the story. Maybe I could just mention anyway that in order to get the results out with electronic reporting, you need to define electronic reporting destinations. So basically, you define them like this. And if I want to define electronic reporting destination for the one which I have just created, I would go and select the new one. I would find this format which I have created. So this would be the MeetUp Excel, and then I would say new, and I will say something to screen and select what I want to do. And then I will set where I want to send it. Let's say screen. Enable it, and basically now it is going to send it to screen. I can also convert it to PDF if I want to. Basically, now I have set that I want to send it to screen. I also have the possibility to send it to other destinations, so like email, archive, file, Power BI, which basically is SharePoint, and printer. So after I have done this, I can now go ahead and run it again, and now we should see it on screen. Now, electronic reporting destinations are not as powerful as we are used to with SSRS reports and with print management settings there, because they have overrides, they have all kinds of possibilities in settings, and you really have quite a bit of flexibility. With electronic reporting, you don't have that much options, but okay, you can use what you have got. Now we see that this result is here. Now it's in PDF and it is sent to screen. So that is working. And I will now show you how Docentric approaches this. And I will just have a few slides to give the comparison theoretically, and then we will go practically. Okay, click here and let me quickly show this. The enhancements which Docentric has prepared are the following. Firstly, the whole hassle with the format configuration is replaced with tried and proven Docentric templates designed in Word. Any design change can be immediately visible on live preview. This means that the report template design will also be much faster. And for some really complex report, it may be even 15 times faster, we have found out. Next, since format configurations are no longer needed, practically that means that 50% of the problems fall away. And also no need for setting up electronic reporting destinations, because once you set Word, actually Docentric Word template, for the electronic reporting, let's say template, then you can use everything that you normally can use with SSRS reports. So basically all the print management, all the print destination, including Docentric enhanced print destinations, are all available to you, which basically is really quite a huge benefit. And basically, also, it means that there is much less stress because you can have the job done much faster. Okay, now, when we talk about the customization process, first two steps are the same as previously, because we need to get the model mapping running on top of data model to get the data, but then we intercept this data in the Docentric pipeline. Basically, we need to set some electronic reporting and configurable business document settings in the Docentric, and then create what we call the DSP file. That's the file, Docentric data source package file, which contains the data schema, the labels, and some test data, which we use in the template to design and to test. Then we design the Docentric template. Afterwards, we add this new template to D365 and activate it right away. And now I'm going to show how this is done. Okay, we can start from scratch. That's one way, but we have also provided some already made replicas for most commonly used reports. So I'm going to use that one for starter. And the first thing I need to do, I need to get this DTSP file so that I can start the design and that I can get all the changes which I have introduced. So in my setting, this is, I go to the Docentric workspace now. Here is the list of reports which I have registered in the Docentric. Now I already am using the selection for the sales invoice. This is what I am interested in right now. And here I will need to set, first I need to tell where to get the configurations from. This is already done. I have selected that I want to use our MeetUP data model and the matching model mapping. That's the first thing. And the next thing is I want to set generation options. This one is going to generate this DSP file, which I will be using later for the design. So I set these settings, and then I'll go and also modify the print management, because right now the print management also doesn't need to be set for electronic reporting, but I just set it for SSRS report. So the report format is SSRS, and that's enough for now. Now I will just go and run the report so that I get the DDSP file. I can run the original as well, because the template that I'm going to see as the produced report is not really important. What's important is the DDSP file, which will be downloaded. Okay. All right, so this is the resulting report, but I'm not really so much interested in that one. I'm interested in this one, in these things here. So let me open this in folder to show you what I've got. You see, here I have got two DDSP files, and one of them is for configurable business documents. This is the one which contains all the information I need. If I open it quickly, since many of you are technical, you see this is XML file, basically, which contains everything Docentric needs to know in order to use this template. These are the general data about company, about current worker. This, as you can see, is human readable. These are fields, these are value in the fields. Then besides general data, I also have the main data, where again, so this is the record, then we have some sub-records, then we have fields and values and so on. So there's everything I need to know. And this is also some sort of debugger, because I get all the data that were produced by the report, and I can see whether there are values, whether these values are correct, whether maybe there are no values. And if there are no values, I can then figure out, okay, is it because I made a mistake, or maybe there's really no data, and so on. So this is really the first step to debugging. And now when I have this template and this DDSP file, I will now open the template. So the template, I will start with the replica which we prepare out of the box. So I'm going to open it. So this is the way how the template looks. I've designed it now in Word using the Docentric AX Designer. And here at the side, basically, I already have the data that is part of this replica. Now, this data doesn't contain my changes yet, because this is done using the standard configuration. Now, I need to make sure that I provide the data and the data will be now taken from what we have just generated. So this is the configurable business document DDSP file. When I open it, I will see that right now I have my customized fields already available. I have the item image, is item image present, item image is string. So you see it's as easy as this. Practically, this is the configuration, the data model configuration in Word loaded with the data and also with labels. So I can now play with this, and I can now start binding the data source with my actual template. And the element tree is actually already showing me which things have been bound. And I can now start clicking on the element tree, and I see which part is selected, and that's actually the content that is pointing to from the element tree. I have labels, I have fields, I have some conditional logic in this case, and if I see the conditional logic, I immediately can understand what it is doing. So in this case, I'm checking if this code is containing any content. And if, let's say, this regional code is this one, so I can create all kinds of conditional content, very flexible. And the best part is that I can also turn the live preview on, which is immediately showing me the result. And if I would have a separate monitor, I could actually dock it into another monitor. And as soon as I change anything here, it's basically modifying also the actual result. And I'm now working offline because I have loaded the DDSP file, which I have previously generated in D365F4. I can now play with this data as I want. I can even modify the data on the fly if I want to. I can just go here and I could see the data, and I could then modify it. I could modify this value, for example, if I wanted to. So it's really, really user-friendly. Now, let me do the modification that I want to do, but before I do any changes, let me now save it under a different name, so that I will already have it under the name as I wanted, and I will just call it with images. So I already got one with this name. I'll just overwrite it, replace, and now I will show you how to work. So if I quickly show you how this document is working, as you can see, it's quite complex because, sales invoice is complex document. All this purple content is conditional. And for example, here I have the if tagging element, and here I see what it is doing, so what it is controlling. So the purple is all conditional content, which is actually displayed or not even included in the resulting report. This pink content is repeating content. So this is the list, which basically iterates through the list of records. And then according to whatever I have set here, it is then giving me the results. There's also lots of conditional content here under the list because some parts are just shown if they exist. And what I will do now, I will now insert a new row here where I will prepare the space for my image. Not list, but actually I want to insert the row. So I'll just start like this. Insert the rows above. Okay, so I have inserted the row. I'm going to resize it to what I want to use for the image. And here I will then insert the image. This is the image tagging element. So this is one of the tagging elements. This is how you add new content. So field would bind to strings, strings, numbers, and dates. List would bind to the repeating content group as well, summary field as well. Image would bind to the images. So this time, when I click the image now, the system is asking me, okay, where do you want the image from? And I say I want it from this item images string, and that's all. I just bound it. And now I need to make sure that this row will not be growing. So I need to use stable properties from Word, which will fix the row height to exact size. And the last thing is I just need to select this whole row and make it conditional. So the if tagging element is now going to control when this row will be displayed at all. And I just bind this to the is image present field, which is one of the fields among my variable fields, and that's it. I can now, after I have done it, I can immediately do the preview. If I had the live preview on, I would immediately see it, but now I can also click it here, which will open it in PDF. And as you can see, it's all there the way as I expected. And that's all. I have finished my design. As you can see, it was really very easy. Now I save it once again and close the Word. And I will now activate it in D365 FO. Activation is a matter of minute. So let me show you how to do it. I go to these settings where I have Docentric reports. First of all, generation options, I will now turn this setting off. I don't need it anymore. And now, okay, here, let's say that we don't have it here. I have it from previous, so I will delete it. Okay, so I will just start like it is now. This is the one that comes out of the box. So this is the SSRS replica, the Docentric replica for sales invoice. And now I will be adding my electronic reporting template. I'll give it a new name. I will call it with images. And I'll add CBD so that I will know that this is configurable business document. CBD. Okay, I'll give it this name, save. And then I will attach the template. I'm going to store it to Azure Blob Storage, where the system will find it. And now I point to my replica, which I have just created. Okay, now it is loaded and basically ready to go. The last thing I will do is I will now modify print management settings. I can go directly to print management settings from the Docentric setup. And here, okay, I already have the SSRS, that's okay. In the print destination settings, so I have selected the Docentric settings screen, and here I will point to my replica with images. So that's all it takes. And now I can already run it. Okay, let's try our luck. Use print management. Now we should be getting this new template to screen. So here it is. The PDF result of our template. Now, Docentric also offers quite a bit of improvements in print management as well. Just to mention a few of them and to show you what options we have got. For example, in Print Archive, there is, let's say, the possibility to set some notes, so you can select the templates for screen as well. Then Printer is offering you the selection of the default printer, which basically can be assigned to each user individually. Then File is really offering many options. For example, you can save to Azure Blob Storage, Azure Files, SharePoint, attachments, so basically store on the other records in D365, and for the on-premise, you can also use the file system. You can have, for example, under the Azure Blob Storage, you can use dynamic generation of folders, and the same thing can be also done for the Azure Files and SharePoint. Azure Files is interesting because Azure Files can actually be mapped to your drives. So you work with Azure Files just as like you would be working with your local drive or your network drive. So it's interesting. Output format supported this in the Docentric, and you can always include placeholders, which basically contain the values from the running report, as you can see them here. So these are custom placeholders, but there are also some standard ones, and you really have quite a bit of options. For example, if you wanted to include the invoice ID as part of your file name, you would just select this placeholder, and you'd go back and insert it where you want it to be, the file name, for example, like this. So it is really quite flexible, and emailing is also very well supported. You can have the attachments, so the attachment of generated report. You can have copy recipients, blind copy recipients. You can control what the receiver sees as the sender account. and we also support the generation of rich text content, which is HTML based. So any fancy HTML content can be inserted here, and the email body would actually look exactly how you have designed it here. Okay, so that would briefly be what I have wanted to show today, not to be too long. Maybe just for a wrap up, and then if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If I just show this slide now, which sort of is the result of the experiences which we have had, when to use standard electronic reporting and when to use Docentric electronic reporting. Basically, standard, if you have some simple templates, simple modifications, okay, then standard is fine. If you need Excel output as a must, then standard is the only option. And if you don't have some high design requirements, for example, if the company doesn't require some sophisticated theme and things like that, then okay, you can do it with standard. As soon as you have some complex design requirements, for example, complex template with complex logic, high design requirements, and if you need to integrate it with print management because you are already using extensively print management for business rules and you know, the ways how you want to automate output management, in that case, Docentric electronic reporting or just Docentric standard with SSRS replicas is probably the way to go. So that would be my my part. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some questions in the chat.
Aha, sorry, I didn't see the chat.
Yeah.
Let me quickly
Maybe
open
Jonas,
it.
do you want to open your mic and just ask?
I can try to. Can you hear me okay, guys?
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, so I work at a company called Unibake, which is one of the biggest bakery groups in Europe. We have fresh and frozen units. So fresh breads is the bread you buy if you go to Lidl and pick up a loaf of bread. So imagine each little store needs a piece of paper for them to be able to receive this bread. And we have about an hour or two to print these papers. We don't do this in Germany. This is just kind of to visualize it. We looked at configurable business documents to kind of replace our current output management solution in an old ERP, but we chose not to do it because it looked too complex. We had a hard time finding partners that could support us, and we were concerned about throughput. So let's say that we needed to print 6,000 packing slips in 1 to 2 hours. Do you think this solution could support us?
Well, your requirements are quite high, so that's true. I would need to verify that. I know that we have large customers with high throughputs, but we don't really work immediately with the end customers. Most of the time we work through partners, and for such customers with high complex and let's say high requirements, usually the partners take care of everything, because this is not just a matter of, you know, one single piece of the story, but that's the whole system needs to be properly configured and adjusted and everything else. So I would say that it would be an interesting challenge. And maybe if your implementation partner can contact us and we can figure out, and if they explain how they would see the solution to this, then we can see how Docentric would fit into the whole story. Basically, Docentric is just responsible for reporting, and here there's lots of other reasons. I mean, if you would be going with SSRS reports, we can just expedite them a little bit, but still, you know, the SSRS pipeline needs to run because Docentric sits on top of it. Docentric just replaces the report generation. The same thing with electronic reporting. So the format and the mapping configuration needs to run, and then Docentric takes over. Docentric by itself is very fast because we really optimize it. But still the data needs to be read, and this is something that is done in the standard part, either electronic reporting or SSRS reports. So if that standard part can be accelerated to the point that fits your needs, I think then it would easily also fit Docentric in the story. But if you have the problem with reading the data fast enough, then it would potentially be the problem with Docentric solution. But it's a good challenge, so I would invite your implementation partner or yourself to contact us, and we would see what could be done.
Yeah, and it is also an interesting challenge for our current ERP solution. So
yeah.
What in terms of reliability, is it based on the document routing agent, the printing part itself, or do you have your own?
The printing part is based on document routing agent. We are actually thinking of creating our own document routing, but this is really a complex thing, and probably it's a year or two away. So at the moment, we rely on document routing agent, which is potentially also a problem with such a high volume printing.
Yeah, and we tried to set it up just for label printing, and I'm not really too impressed of it. So sorry for the Microsoft guys on the call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any partners that you recommend?
Well, we work with lots of partners. So, I mean, to recommend somebody, that's really a quite unpleasant job. I think, I mean, we cannot really recommend. I mean, if you come to us and ask us, do you have some experience with this and this partner, then we can say yes or no. And what do we think about them? But just to recommend somebody, it's really hard for me to just say a name, you know, out of the blue.
But it's not like FormPipe that recommends Tabella, at least in Europe. I think they are a preferred partner.
Yeah, I don't think if we have worked with them yet. But I would have to contact our sales team in order to have more details. You know, I don't know all this partner stuff.
But interesting. Is it okay if I reach out to you after this meetup?
Yes, sure. I would be happy to.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I would have two. Thanks, Alban.
Yeah.
First, easy one. If I have simple requirements, but high requirements regarding design and would like to work with Word better than Excel, would it then also be a solution, or does it have to be complex, the requirements?
Well, I mean, any kind of requirement can usually be easily met using Word. So if the Excel output is not a requirement, if you just want to get PDFs and nice looking documents, then I would definitely go for Word. And Docentric is really very, very powerful here. Our designer is out more than 10 years, and we have really polished it quite a bit. And we know, I mean, sometimes we see partners doing reports that we can hardly believe that they are possible to design. So really, Word is incredibly powerful. And if you have a little bit of imagination and if you just do things right, then you get amazing results, indeed.
Okay. And there's still a free version to start with, right?
Yes, we have a free version. You can always start with that one. That one doesn't support document templates creation, but it supports all other goodies like emailing, file print destinations. Actually, it improves the standard quite a bit. And it is free, and it is going to be free. And even with every release, we keep adding some free features as well. So it's not something that, you know, stands somewhere on some point. It is also alive. Okay.
And the important question is, when I now look to realize this German standard Zugpferd in Dynamics, and you Google for it, the only thing you find is Ludwig's post from 2020, I think. So my question is it still correct? Do you need, can you work with a Microsoft template for PEPAL and X-Rechnung, or is there an extra template needed for this German format for e-invoicing?
Maybe I can try to answer first before Ludwig. Now, as far as electronic invoicing is concerned, this is something that's probably going to get more and more traction. Some countries already have it as a requirement, especially for dealing with garments. And the point there is, okay, one thing is XML standard, which is basically defined and you cannot really modify it, you have to apply it. And the second thing is visual presentation, which is just a document you generate for the visual presentation of your document. So you have electronic data and you have the visual appearance of that data. And that visual appearance can be, for example, a Docentric template, because you just attach it so that somebody can open it and view it. And everything else is basically defined in the regulation. And I think that Microsoft updates this electronic invoicing standard so that according to which localization you need, you then apply that localization and you already have the e-invoicing supported using it. So that's how it is done. And if not, Microsoft will probably come with some solution that is going to cover your need. Docentric here is just the way how the document is going to look like when the user will open it and preview it. And it is just attached as a PDF usually. Maybe it's a PDF archive standard. Depends on what kind of requirement there is. Okay, maybe Ludwig, if you have something to add to that.
Yeah, maybe Andreas, I can connect you with the product manager responsible for that, so that you can get a first answer to your question and a confirmation. Yep.
But so the answer is not quite. It's part of the invoicing standard template from Globalization Studio. This Zugpferd thing.
I would say it's available in standard.
Okay.
But to get a confirmation, I would like to connect you with the product manager.
And I'll go let Troso in.
All right.
Well, I don't want to steal the time from the next speaker. If anybody has questions, you can always contact me later. So my email is admin.ludwig@docentric.com. You can.
Yeah, I think, can you put it in the chat again?
Yes, sure. I will do it right away.
Thank you so much, Albin, for taking the time.
No problem. My pleasure.
Great, Jen.
So here's my email. If anybody wants to contact me.
Thank you. And with that in mind, thank you, Albin. Let's see if Diana, if you can share your screen now.
Sure. Let me.
I love your t-shirt. I'm a super user.
This window. Okay, so should be that one.
Yes.
So, okay. Well, I would like to talk to you about Power Apps Grid Customizer Control. It's actually a complete another word. It's about Dynamics 365 and model-driven apps in Power Platform. First of all, a few words about myself. My name is Diana Birkelbach. I'm working for Orbis since 23 years already. Started with a development for CRM since the version 1.2, so from the beginning. In the last year, I concentrate on PCFs and write blogs and make videos. Yes, I'm a Microsoft MVP, and as the t-shirt says, a super user in Power Apps community forum. You can find me here answering questions or on my LinkedIn account or YouTube or Twitter. Just reach out to me in case you have a question. So first things, the PCF are actually Power Apps component framework. It's a framework for developing components in Power Apps. That's for more driven apps, for Canvas apps or custom pages, and even in Power Pages. It's a pro dev possibility, and we have the same framework as the first-party controls from Power Apps. So there are two main parts of PCFs. I'm sure the most of you heard about them. So we have the field PCF and the dataset PCF.
the field PCF is something we can use on the forms in model-driven apps, or of course in custom pages or canvas apps. We can bind one or more columns, and they can be shared by several PCFs at once. Most of the data types are already available, so we can use already the field PCFs in quite a time. From the development perspective, there are two important parts. There's the declaration, there's the manifest part, where we tell how the PCF we're going to integrate or communicate with the platform. And here's the place where we define which are the properties or data set in case we need one, which are the resources we are including, like images, like translation files or CSS, and also the feature that we want to use inside the PCF. An example would be if you want to use the web API from Dataverse. The other part is the implementation, and here's where we can use the modern development, front-end development tools like Node.js. We are using TypeScript, and most of the PCF are written in React and Fluent UI. That's actually also the platform the Power Platform is using. From the implementation perspective of a PCF, we have 4 important functions here. We have the init function, which is called its time PCF. It's instantiated, so in the beginning. Very important is the update view, because this is the point which will be called each time something in the context of the component is changed. That could be something on the form was changed, so we have to notify the PCF about that. And the other important function is the get outputs, because here's the place where the PCF is telling the platform something was changed. You can get this new data. And the other PCF type, it's about data sets. That's something we can use for a grid, for a map control, maybe calendar or the timeline. And we can use that inside model-driven apps for tables, views, or subgrids, and also in Canvas app or custom pages where we can bind it to tables, to collection, or connectors. So we have more power there. They are seamlessly integrated with the platform because the platform provides the data. We can bind this PCF to any table, view, or subgrid. We are able to use the search filter from the model-driven apps, but we are able to extend the data or filter the data using code. We can take control of paging or sorting, and we can also use the ribbon interaction. So each time we select a record inside a dataset PCF, the ribbon will interact, or the new command will interact with that record exactly as they do with a standard PCF. And what you see here, it's the colorful options set dataset PCF, which I did, and which is published on PCF Gallery. But to implement a dataset PCF, it's a high implementation effort. And I have a series of blogs, which I have posted on my blog site, where I show you everything you have to take care of if you want to implement a professional dataset PCF. You have to take care that the header, it's sticky and it's not moving while you scroll down. The height of the screen, it's filled. About the column width, because what you define in the customizing, it's not the width. You are going to see which column this grid has to be responsive. We have to take care of filtering, paging, sorting, record selection, interaction with the ribbon, about translation, and there are so many stuff you have to take care of. It's better if you don't have to do all that effort. And that's the difference. The implementation of the field PCF doesn't take that much effort, but we cannot integrate it inside the dataset PCF. But there is a solution. The PowerApps grid, the new PowerApps grid, actually, it will eventually replace all editable grids, so all read-only and editable grids inside model-driven apps. And that's the place where we can host our own PCF. So inside this grid, which is completely implemented, we are able to host our own PCF for special for the cells we want to do that. And that works in more driven apps. In Power Pages, we can register the pipes grid, but the customizer control didn't work in my case. Maybe will be the case in the future. This Power Apps grid has a lot of features like infinite scrolling, inline editing. We can use the colors and everything that's coming out of the box. And I'm also looking forward for new features like grouping and aggregation, which are already announced in the release waves, but that was in the past too, so it was postponed. Hope they will come soon. Also, we have already nested grids in the preview. But as I said, the very interesting part is that we are able to host our own control inside this grid. And this control, this PCF, it's a very special kind of PCF, which we can define inside the customizing, where we set as a last parameter the name of the PCF which developed. And we can use this PCF to render the cell or the editor for the grid. And I have a few examples of that. So first of all, the example from the SDK. We have here an example to have the cells for credit limits shown in red or blue, depending on the value. And also the name and the address would be green. That's something that's implemented there. And I've told you about the most important part of the PCF implementation, and we see them here. So the declaration is the manifest, and it's very easy because it's every time the same. All we have here, it's the property, and it's only event name. That's always the same for every pipes grid customizer control. From the implementation, the init function, it's very short. All we have to do is to register the render and the editor overrides for the event we get from the parameter. So very easy, 2 lines of code. Okay, maybe 3. And now the real implementation. For instance, for a render override, we just define for each data type we want to override what should happen there. And here are also just a few lines of code. So if the column is credit limit and it's more than 100,000, that should be blue, otherwise red, and the green color for the text column. And that's it. So it's very easy. Now there are a few more use cases which I've tried out, because we could do even more with this customizer control. But first of all, pretty standard use case. We want to have a Boolean column as a smiley, and we want to have the option set or the choice column with some colors, and maybe not the standard, which includes the whole area colored in that color. So maybe just a small icon before that. And here's how it's looking like. This one, it's the standard. So I have here the is happy column and this standard technology code, which is an option set. And if I go now to the customizing and I go to the control for the pipes grid, I can define here the customizer control. And here's the name of the PCF which I've developed. So I have first the publisher prefix underscore, then I have the namespace and the name of the control. And of course I have to save and publish. And when I go now and switch to this grid, you can see a small delay in the beginning, but after that, the controls are there. So the column is happy is now a smiley, and technology code has an icon, colored icon before that. And if I load this again, there's no delay anymore. It's very fast. So it's just in the beginning, you can see a small delay in rendering. And this grid is also editable. So if I click on the smiley, I can make all the people happy And then we have also the technology code, which we can edit here right in line with the control which I've defined there. And also we can use the standard functionalities, so the column filter are still there, and we are able to use them. And from the implementation, just to see the parallel here, we have the manifest. It's only the event name, nothing special there. You see there the namespace and the name of the PCF, which I've registered on the grid. And now in the index TS, it's just a registration of my own render inside the init function. It's a little more here, but it's a special case I didn't have to do here, but basically just fire the event and register the customizer. And here come the real cell render. Here's the place where I've taken for option set and for the two options my old render, but I just using React, and I'm taking that Calfer dropdown, which I've implemented as a React component, and I have here the possibility to tell the platform that the value was changed when I click on the cell. But that's all. So it's not so much effort to implement that. But we can go more and make even more with this customizer control. And another example would be the calculated column. So just imagine I have the accounts, and I have a column there, the next appointment where I should visit the account. And sometimes the appointments are overdue. So if they are in the past, I want to have there not the appointment from the past, which I didn't took, but take the next Monday or something like that. And the first idea would be to use from Dataverse the formula column, because I go in Dataverse, I go on columns, and I've defined there formula column. That would be this next appointment. It's of type date and time. And as a formula, you can see right there that in case scheduled date it's in the past, then I'm gonna take the next Monday. Otherwise, I take the scheduled date, which is planned there. And this is working pretty good. So until this point, I don't need a customizer control, because I can go in Power Apps and I can change the schedule date. And when I leave the row or the cell, the next appointment is automatically calculated by the PowerFX formula. But if I go in offline mode, that one won't work anymore, because Dataverse PowerFX column, formula column, it's not available in offline mode. So now I change the date for schedule date, but the next appointment won't be calculated. But if I move now to the pipes grid with my customizer control, you can see I have already this nice visual feedback if it's overdue or not. And now I'm able to see the next appointment, even if I'm still in offline mode and no connection to the Dataverse. And that's pretty interesting until now, but we can do even more. How about showing related users for a table right in line inside a grid? Because usually you are not able to show records which are from one-to-many relationship or many-to-many. So associated request, we are only able to take data from the lookup. So from many-to-one relationship. But using this Power Apps Grid Customizer control, we are able to make requests right inside that cell of the grid and read all the related data and show it right in line. And that's what I did. So we changed to the pipe script customizer control. And I have there a special view where I have the column related user. And here I can see all the records. So all the related users. And they are actually, if you see here in the customizing, they are actually a many-to-many relationship. So just associated user to the table where I was. And still being able to use the filter for the rest of the columns, of course, not for related users, but the rest of the grid has the full functionality. And from the customizing point of view, I have in this table, first of all, seeing the relationship. So it's a many-to-many relationship from my table to user. And in my target table, I have a dummy column. It's called related users. It's a type string, but the data type, it doesn't matter. And if you have a look to the data inside the table, just adding that related users to the table, you can see that I have no data there. So it's just a dummy column where I can register my customizer control. And then I can go to the table, go to the controls, and take the PowerApps grid control, where I've registered, of course, my PCF. And from the code, it's also not very much. It's the same as registering the event name in a manifest, registering the own renderer, but this time I have a little more. I have a cache, which I attach to this render. So as you see in each cell, in case I don't have the data already, I'm going to make a fetch for this record and grab the data. And otherwise I take it from the cache. And then I just making some inline rendering. So for each person which is associated, I make an image, and that's it. But in the previous example, when you were making fetches, or I was making fetches, I was making one fetch per row. So it was one request per row. And that's not very good from the consumption point of view. So I have here an optimized example. It's another use case. This time I want to show the count of the tasks associated to each account. And this time I'm using the so-called technique using debouncing. But actually I'm trying to make one fetch per page this time. So as you see, first of all, I can see all the tasks available for each account. And if I click on an account, I'm able to make more tasks. So I create a new one now. And when I close this window, you can see the counter was refreshed there. And now I have one task for this account. And from the number of requests, just on the right side, you can see some logs, which I'm registering there. So yellow will be the request for getting some data. The pink one are the actual fetch request, which I do. And the green logs, it's something where I resolve a promise from the cache. And here's how it works. Oops, sorry. Okay, so here's how it works. So when I refresh, you can see that there are first a lot of yellow lines, so they are requesting the data. It's only one fetch, the pink one, and after that, everything gets solved from the cache. And when I scroll down, there are more requests, and there is another fetch, so it's only the second one, and solving from the cache too. And if I move now up and down, there are more requests there, but I'm solving everything now from the cache. So I've minimized the number of fetches I had to do. And now I have one which is actually not really supported for now, but it works. I've took from the example from the SDK, I took something that's documented there in the TypeScript definition and use that, so make it work. But since that there is no official example for that, I'm implementing a drag and drop of the rows. So I'm inside my account, and for each account I have some positions which I want to have it in a certain order. So the user should be able to reorder the rows, and for that I'm using a customizer control which allows me to drag and drop this cell. And when it's dropping, I'm not able to make this reorder right inside the Pipes Grid Customizer control, but I send a post message to the form where I'm using the form scripting to reorder these rows and refresh the grid. So basically, this drag and drop, it's only some illusion inside the cell, and sending a message to the form to make this reorder. So I have there a column named sort order, and for this view, I have this column for the sort order, which is integrated in the form as a subgrid, where I've registered a Pipes Grid Customizer control. And I have there, of course, my drag rows PCF registered. And I have also on the form some scripting attached to the form, to the account. And you can see there in the code that here is the place where I receive the message that the rows were dragged, and here's the place where I start to retrieve the records to change the sort order for them. So I make an update record, and after that I refresh the grid. And I have even more. The last one, it was about disabling cells. It's actually one of the most needed features inside the form. So of course we need them inside the Pipes grid too. Unfortunately, there is some scripting for the grid, but doesn't work fast enough. Sometimes it's working a little late. Also, it's not possible to request some data and make the decision of enabling or disabling cells based on data which is not right inside the grid. So I've tried to make this disabling based on the Pipes Grid Customizer control. And here is how it looks like. So if I change to a view, in the beginning, it's everything disabled until I make the request. And when the request is back, you can see that some of them are now enabled and the other are still disabled. And there were two important parts to take care of. You can see here the same. In the beginning, they are disabled. When the request is back, and you see it on the right side, the request was made. Here's the place where I can use the control which I've defined there, or the standard one. And this one is it's based. So actually, I had to take care of two parts there. First of all, to have this visual feedback to the user, which cell is disabled, which is a part of the cell render. And the other one was to stop editing in some cases where it starts to edit and I don't have the control on that. And that was made in the editor, but it works pretty good. So about the restrictions, so I can do a lot of stuff with the pipes grid customizer control, but I cannot do everything I want to. So I have to think about the limits. We are able to register only one control per grid. As you saw in the customizing, I have only one control. So in case I want to have more functionality inside the grid, so for instance, I want to disable some cells and the other one should be showed with a smiley control, then I have to bring the two PCFs together in this one, which I can register there. So it's a little harder to make a generic PCF to make all the work I need in one grid. Also, we cannot pass parameter to the control. So for instance, for the colorful option set, which I've used on the grid, there are some configuration possible to say which icon should be used there. For the customizer control, we are not able to say which icon we want to have in that grid. So it's a little harder to make it generic. As the best practice, we have to take care to not change the data or not mutate the data or the metadata. There are some functions to notify the grid that something changed, but we should use this properties read only and make everything only through that functions. The control should be lightweight and fast because that impacts very much the grid performance. And we have to take care that the grid will dispose the customizer control anytime. As you saw, as I scrolled up and down, the controls were disposed and created again when I was coming to the same element again. So that will create new ones anytime, and we have to dispose an internal state to prevent memory leaks. There are some limitations to the grid itself. We cannot add columns. We cannot hide columns at runtime. We are forced to use the complete view, which is there. We cannot change the height of the row. We cannot use a dynamic filter for the record, so we cannot filter the data showed in the grid, and that's a big problem. So I think it's the most important reason to create a dataset PCF by yourself and not use the pipes customizer control. You cannot control the grid refresh from inside the customizer control, but as we saw, we can use form scripting for that. And there is no API to change another cell. So during rendering of the cell, we are basically forced to use to refresh only this one and not the other cells. So maybe it's hard to make some calculation using this one. We can refresh the other cell if we need to. So sometimes it's better to use the form scripting, but there could be some timing issues because the scripting is running after the render function. So they are not synchronous, and there could be some issues too. I have a lot of blogs on this subject. So I have a category on my blog site, pipes grid control. And I'm still working on some more use cases because I think it's still a very interesting feature and saves us a lot of time for not having to develop a complete dataset PCF. That would be for my side. How about questions?
I think Ludwig has put one in the chat.
Yeah. It's just a short question. When I saw the drag and drop, I was wondering, would it also work for datasets with a lot of rows? So if you have 1,000 rows, would it be same, or would it take 5 seconds to reorder things?
Well, the drag and drop UI, it's working because, well, maybe it's hard to scroll that much and to come to 1,000 records above. From the code, which is actually reordering, of course, we have to fetch all the records from the beginning to the end between the lines we want to switch. So there are a lot of updates we have to do. But I don't think there is a limitation. I don't think 1,000 records would be a problem.
Okay. And another question: how can I get my hands on what you created, just to play around and test with it?
Yeah, sure. So I have the code on my GitHub. I can post it, and of course, in every blog I've wrote, I have the link to the corresponding GitHub repository. So
Okay.
I'm gonna post in the chat. Customizer control. So we have it here, my GitHub, and maybe also my blogs. They are explained how it works on this category.
Okay, cool. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's still there? Any other questions?
There should be a lot of people here still. I bet, Diana, once Ludwig is getting started in the low-code team, you will get a lot of questions from him.
Not sure, because sometimes I hear some people saying it's great that it works, but I would have loved to have some low-code way to do that, because it's still code. Yeah, it's the way it is. I cannot change it, but maybe it's possible to make a little more of this kind of PCFs, to have it like the ones from the PCF gallery. I guess when we have a little more features, we'll be able to create PCF for that too, and make it available in the community the way we did before with the PCFs. Maybe that's a solution.
Yeah, I saw something in your slides. I think it was from the PowerCat team. What was that? I just saw at the bottom something.
Which one?
I don't remember, but somewhere it was at the bottom. There was from PowerCat team icon or something.
Okay.
But maybe
remember,
yeah.
But of course, if you mean the what's the name? The creator kit, the PCFs we are using from the PowerCat. So yes, so there are a lot of them which we use in custom pages and Canvas apps, and they are maybe a solution for to create some custom pages and have your own grid. It's as long, I think we have some problems if it's editable there, not very sure. But for the other grids, maybe it's a solution instead of developing a complete PCF dataset PCF.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Okay, thank you. If there are not more questions, then thank you very much.
Thank you, Diana. And I just put in the chat also, if people want to connect, you can put your LinkedIn profile in the chat, so we can connect with each other. And I put yours in the chat already, Diana, so that people can connect with you.
Okay, thank you.
And awesome that you had time to join us tonight. That was amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Always.
Thanks
so I think, Ludwig, you can stop the recording now, and then everything people say is for free.
Yeah, stop. Yeah.